Thank you.
And she's probably the youngest one here in the room. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak here at this amazing venue. I didn't know until I arrived, but Fenna Brockway, who I believe is the best leader of the Labour Party that never was, actually used to be a lecturer here. So before you go to the pub tonight, in Red Lion Square there's a massive statue of Fenna Brockway, an amazing anti-imperialist, anti-racist campaigner who lived for 99 years. Please go and take a look at it. So if you know about Red Labour, it's probably because of our enormous social media reach. We actually outperform Momentum in terms of the number of people who see our posts. But Red Labour is more than that. It's part of the prehistory of the Corbyn movement. We had our first ever face-to-face meeting in 2013 in a pub called the Brie Louise, which is just about to be knocked down to make way for High Speed 2. It's a lovely real ale pub, it's such a shame. But it was a different time. John McDonnell came because at this point in his career he had enough time to loll about in the pub. Jeremy Corbyn cycled past on his bike, but he didn't have time to stop. But that was the start of Red Labour, and it developed into a witty, irrelevant social media operation, refusing to brown-nose the Labour establishment that dominated at the time. It was soon catapulted to the forefront of the Jeremy for Leader campaign, as many Red Labour activists were instrumental in the campaign to get Jeremy on the ballot. And during the campaign, we found that the way we produced simple paint memes with Jeremy Corbyn's quotes from his time as a Labour activist worked incredibly well, because the simplicity of Jeremy's message really resonated with people who had been raised on sound bites to actually hear something that was meaningful. During the 2016 leadership election, we campaigned on social media to rage against the hypocrisy of those who turned on Corbyn in favour of a misogynist Owen Smith. We now have been put in the position of defending quite a successful leadership that actually is doing well to stand on its own, and that is a difficult challenge for us to adapt to. The whole of the Labour left, the LRC, Red Labour, and everyone else who considers themselves a comrade on the Labour left needs to think about this different situation we find ourselves in now. Do we criticise a Labour leadership that has brought ideas like opposing austerity to a national stage and done phenomenally well? Or do we push for an even more socialist agenda? Because while the 2017 manifesto was an utterly phenomenal achievement and the best thing that many of us will have ever campaigned on, it's still not 100% a socialist agenda. We could have gone further to reverse welfare cuts, and we could have made more explicit our commitment to reversing NHS privatisation, for example. It's not disputed that a Labour government would make an enormous change in the fortunes of working class people, and we've made huge progress. But one of the things we need to bear in mind is that Jeremy Corbyn will not live forever, and although, as a vegetarian teetotaler cyclist, I give him good odds. But we need to remind the grassroots left that the fight for socialism is still on and still alive and still crucial. Because in a world where everyone is soft left now, where, as Mark said, everyone is posing as a Corbynista, it strikes me as worrying that we might be going towards a leadership election without a clearly defined socialist candidate, as opposed to one who has never really been part of the movement. I think our task as the Labour left, especially as Red Labour in our social media organisation, is to develop and defend the original aims of the Corbyn project, the internationalism which I think many comrades would agree has kind of been compromised by Labour's latest stance on immigration. In Lenin's words, what is to be done? I think one of the things we've got to do straight away is work to democratise momentum, because although I imagine everyone in this room is totally frustrated by momentum at some point or another, it actually was a phenomenal PR victory for the left. It really allowed the left to be regularised and integrated into the mainstream political movement, and now we have MPs who, only kept their seats because of momentum. But if they continue to be a self-selecting clique, then they will lose the support of key activists and lose the trust of the rest of the broader left. I think the stunt they pulled at conference by getting rid of some of the more controversial debate topics is a really bad example of how we might be losing ground on keeping the grassroots of the Labour Party focused on socialism. I think we need to organise around the future of the Labour left. MPs such as Laura Pidcock and Kate Osamore are the future, and it really is imperative to have independent left-wing candidates such as those. We need to fight on a left-wing agenda and make sure that Momentum never get the chance to duck political questions like they did at conference again. Like John McDonnell says, we need to be the ideas and the politics of this movement. I might sound nostalgic about the original aims of the Corbyn campaign in that simpler world I mentioned before, but I can't stress enough what it means to have a unilateralist, anti-racist, anti-imperialist like Corbyn as Labour leader on the cusp of number 10, something like that Fenner Brockway never got the chance to do. We need to get back to what inspired those hundreds of thousands of people to join the Labour Party after 2015. And we're in a good place to do it because we've got so many more activists as a result of that surge. I only joined the Labour Party in August 2015 to vote for Corbyn. We need to unite all of those activists around a democratic, centralist, socialist policy, democratic socialist policy that can unite us beyond simple factional divisions, with working together with Momentum and the new influx of amazing left-wing MPs we've had as a result of the 2017 election. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you for electing me your Vice Chair, and if you haven't already liked Red Labour's Facebook page, please do it. Thank you.